Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is B. I'm Beautyandpunk, and I'm very happy to be here at the fashion stage hosting you. Thank you for joining. Today, we're going to be speaking about design the future of fashion, how technology is reshaping the way we interact with clothes, and our experience with the physical and the digital items that are shaping our wardrobes. I have with me Maz. Maz is the founder of Proud Muse, which she describes very humbly as the Etsy of Web3. So what that means is that creators can connect with them to bring their digital products to life. So we buy a lot of digital items. So how do we translate those digital items into physical beings that we can interact with, be them art prints, hoodies, t-shirts, pins, whatever it is that you have created in a digital form that you can experience in the physical world daily. And Danit Peleg, who is a 3D fashion designer. So she has been working for 10, 15 years now with 3D fashion. So she has been printing her own fabrics, her own garments. She was the first person to have her thesis done on 3D fashion and on printed garments. She has explored different garments, 3D printed, also in Web3 with her connection with Nouns, which I'm proudly part of that journey. So how do we change the manufacturing process? And now I want to hear more about how she's working with new materials and production techniques. So this panel is going to be about this. How do we now, not in a digital future, but how are we now changing the way that we produce, buy, and experience the items that we have in fashion? A little bit that I haven't said about you, Ma, and a little bit about you, Danit, please.
Talk about myself? Okay, sure. Yeah, first of all, I'm not the founder. I'm the co-founder of Proud Muse. My co-founder's over there.
I co-founded.
Yeah, a little bit about me and how I actually got into, I guess, fashion or textiles. I'm actually not necessarily the biggest fan of fashion per se. So I started off mainly in sustainable garment making and manufacturing because I got into seeing like how fast manufacturing actually impacts brands and impacts environment. So I went more towards textiles and materials. I started working in that space very early on, around like 2011, 2012, and soon got pretty kind of burnt out about the lack of like conscious consumerism and appetite towards slow fashion. So I've spent a lot of time in like fashion tech, software, and we're really excited to be able to like work on something pretty novel, I think. So there is a new iteration of the web happening. There's a new iteration of the way like brands are interacting with their community and their customers. And I think Proud Muse is actually like an interesting use case of bringing physical product and commerce on chain and utilizing a lot of the on-chain features that you cannot get in Web 2, like revenue splits, making sure that brand, designer, manufacturer is all earning from the products that they produce, and also introducing a lot more around made to order, like no upfront cost stock models in production, so that, you know, it reduces waste and it reduces designers and brands going out of pocket. So I think I'll stop there.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. So my journey with 3D printed fashion started when I studied fashion design at the university, and I decided to try and challenge myself and 3D print an entire fashion collection from my home. I ended up printing the world's first fashion collection that was printed using desktop 3D printers, and it was like a sensation in the world of like digital fashion, because it actually took like digital garment and brought it to life. And the curiosity around it really showed me that I need to double click on this technology and explore more and find a way to make it like a reality, like another way of production. And so that's how my journey started. And one of the most common questions I got is, how are you going to secure your files, and how can you communicate these 3D printed garments that I can email you, and actually you can 3D print it wherever you are. And so that's how I came across, like when NFT started booming in 2020, I got really curious about it to see if I can actually put my garments on chain in a way and let people collect them and interact with the files and 3D print it themselves and remix the garments and create something else out of it. And actually I'll be able to track these garments in like 20 years from now or 50 years from now when the technology will accelerate and and 3D print a garment from 2015, but in 2050. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see where this technology is heading, and that's the work I do.
So one question. So a lot of the times we see things being made or built in one way, and we are frustrated with that, and it doesn't suit our needs, and we see it doesn't suit needs of other people, right? So what was it that your frustration led you to build? Why do you think fashion has to move this way? Why do you think, what are the improvements that we are doing in that step? Real, concrete, now improvements, not something down the line in 20 years to change the way we interact with fashion?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I think like most markets or like most industries, it goes through change every like 5 to 10 years or whatever. And I think fashion has predominantly, like very much like music, has like stayed in kind of like a very monopoly method of like brands controlling the narrative. And you're starting to slowly see a lot more appetite towards, I mean, okay, two things. Like on the manufacturing or production side, there is a lot more appetite towards like minimum order quantity manufacturing, right? And then that is already showcasing that there is a change in consumer behavior in terms of like the way they are consuming certain products, and they actually want products that last longer, better material, better functionality, better utility, obviously with style and taste. But that's interesting. And there's a lot of micro factories that have been growing. Portugal, for example, is probably one of the best case studies of that, right? And then on the more kind of like actual brands that are being created, there's a lot more around like internet native brands. There's a lot more like, I guess, headless brands, we want to call it in crypto. But trad brands in particular as well are also struggling with trying to understand like what is it that their buyers actually want, and how is it that they can like remove this barrier or middleman between them and the fans so that they can have a much more like direct interaction, and actually something that's a little bit more like longer term, more regenerative, a lot more like sticky with their fans. And like that shift is getting people to think differently about how they consume brand and how brands are creating products in general. So I think interestingly, with internet native brands, which you see a lot in crypto, there's a lot around identity, there's a lot around lifestyle, there's a lot around the utilization of crypto to monetize, and obviously IP as well and attribution. But on the trad side, I guess they're looking at it more from a perspective of like, how do you look at connected goods, for example? Like, how do you chip something and then get someone from a IRL perspective into something more digital? And like IYK and 9DCC or whatever are like examples of that. So that's really exciting.
I can definitely relate to all of these topics, and that's actually what's really brought me into this, like exploring this technology further, because everything you mention is exactly the pain of like fashion today. And I think like with this technology and the experiment that I'm doing with 3D printed fashion and like selling that as digital fashion is really like showing all of these, showing like a sustainable alternative to the way we produce and consume fashion today. So first of all, I'll start with like, there is no shipping cost because you can send it directly as a digital file, and you can produce it in a like local manufacturing or at your home. And then there is no inventory. So when I'm selling a piece of garment or when I'm selling the final object to my customers, I can, I can produce it on demand. So there is no inventory. And I can imagine like young designer opening their new stores, like physical garments, and then ending up not selling it. But in this world, we can imagine like a viral jacket or a viral t-shirt or a viral dress. And suddenly you become like a famous designer in the other side of the world because this garment is like, was produced locally somehow, or using 3D printing. That's that's really like helping close the gap between digital to physical in a really easy way. And then there is no waste, because when I produce a piece of garment, there is no leftovers, which is not possible to achieve when you work with traditional fabrics. So everything has a role. And so customization, personalization, of course, we don't even need to mention, because it's so easy to take like using an app, simple app. I can take your measurements and create a dress that will fit you like a glove without ever meeting you in person. So all of these, benefits really bring in like the ideal workflow with 3D printing.
One thing that you tapped that is the idea of haute couture. So something that is made to measure, something bespoke. And I think that combines, my question is combined with our idea of community. So we all want to belong as humans to something that connects with other humans. And at the same time, we want to express our personalities and beliefs and be unique. So that's why it has all the PFP projects have had some level of success, because you want to belong to a community while you still have your own personality shine through. How do you see fashion being that vehicle IRL? Because it's not because it's Web3 that is cool. It's not because it has a tag that is cool. How do you see Web3 bringing that honest and true quality to luxury garments?
I'll start. I can talk about my work and like the work I do with 3D printed fashion, because that's the limitation is your imagination. So we can basically 3D print anything you have in mind, any structure you can imagine, any kind of textiles you can envision. And so when it comes to like luxury fashion, or for like a special events or these kind of things, it's really easy to step out, and be different and unique. And I think we're at the point where we're almost like done everything possible. And what's the new tools? Like, what is the other tools that can, bridge to new kind of creativity using AI, or using, all the benefits that we can get from digital fashion, but make it like in real life. Because digital fashion, you can create amazing garments, but you cannot construct them. So that's one of the things I really love about the technology that I'm using, because I can imagine something and, send you a simulation and it will be identical to what I planned. And we can communicate as a community on a piece of garment, like you do in a special event or something. You communicate with the team, creative team, and you can change things on demand and see it in real life, like in a digital world, but like identical twin to what you will have eventually. So
it's like
so that's a group effort
for communities, not masses, but communities.
I haven't done this test. But that's really interesting experiment that I should try, is create like a collection with internal, like in a sort of like build a community that designing it together and, I don't know, produce it together. You just brought me an idea, but yeah, definitely it's something.
And so how from the creator perspective, so creators come to CrowdMuse, and I'm an artist. I made something. I don't know how to bring it to reality, and I do have a community. How do you see we actually bridging that gap between having the idea of something and actually delivering something that is of quality that people will want to not only in Web3 have, but people want to have? Like, because clothes are for human. It's for humans. We tend to think in Web3 that things are for crypto people, but everyone loves art. Everyone loves literature, as long as they have the possibility to have access to it. So how do you see that creator economy being transformed by blockchain in Web3?
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, I think when we started CrowdMuse, it was always like the idea was, how do you just bring more people to crypto and adopt it through a way in which it's just a facilitator or like a new means of like enabling them to keep developing the thing that they're already doing anyway, right? I think there's a lot of like stuff thrown at creators, like creator economy has been popular in Web2, it's popular here. It's because we're all trying to like figure out like what are their challenges. They're like a really big market, so how do you like solve a lot of their pain points and issues? And to pinpoint it on like, so the types of creators that we work with are like pattern makers, 3D designers, print designers, fashion designers, artists, etc. And the core pain point that most of them have is a few things. One is like, I don't have any money to like cover cost or stock. It's I don't have an audience to distribute, so I don't know where to go to sell. Or if I go to sell on my own website, like I have to drive an audience, and then so that's like the busy work required to like grow an audience, right? And it's also like, you know, IP protection and all these things are basically an issue. The cool thing about blockchain is that, first of all, it's when it comes to physical assets on blockchain, this is not a new thing. This has been going on for a while. Private blockchains by the likes of LVMH has been utilized previously to track products to avoid counterfeit, right? Like, where are these products going? What is the metadata of these products? Like, who's making it somewhere else in another factory that is not like permitted to? So it's been around, but it just hasn't been in the hands of the consumer, or it hasn't been in the hands of the creator. So I think from an attribution standpoint, the artist can, like what you mentioned earlier, is a really good point, is like start bringing your work on chain so that you're growing an archive of your work that is publicly facing, it's verified, that is attributed to you. And you can then open that up for other people to remix and reutilize it. The cool thing about that point in particular is that if you want to grow an audience and if you want to share your IP, you can on chain, right? You can say, this is my IP for a pattern. Creator come and like basically remix it and license it and create a new product out of it. And the original creator can keep earning, just exactly like music royalties, which you can't do in Web 2 necessarily.
So this is really one way that you see Web3 and blockchain and all. So the technologies, there are different ways of using technology for fashion. There is the technology of producing fashion. There is the technology for tracking fashion.
Yeah.
And there is the technology of expanding fashion. And that's what I think you tapped into. How do you expand something that you like into something that is yours and maybe someone else is going to like as well? Right? So how does it, that's the community.
Network effect of it, I guess.
Sorry?
Well, yeah.
Right? So how would I make a difference, like make a change to that original piece? And how do you think that would work on a larger scale of fashion?
Yeah, I mean, you want to take that because I think your use case.
Sure, yeah. So I think we mentioned the concept of like personalize and giving the option. Like I can tell you on like a cool project I've done. Actually, with these jackets, similar jackets to this one, on my website, I let the people the opportunity to choose the mesh of the fabric, like how dense do you want the fabric to be, just by a few clicks. And you can choose the color of the textiles, and you can choose the color of the lining, and you can write your name in the back or whatever you want on the back, and I will produce it for you because most likely you won't be able to 3D print your own jacket, and send it to you in like really high-end, like, you know, limited edition kind of project. And people went, you know, have a lot of fun with it. Like different like CEOs who has like a fashion brand and wanted to have like a special garments for their event, or their jacket, or even big brands that wanted to see what it's all about and produce with their logo. And I was like, okay, that's cool. You know, so that's really, that's a tool that is easy to change and mesh in, you know, in the virtual world, and easy to bring it to the exact same thing. And
so,
sorry, I'm repeating the same topics, but
one thing is, so do you think that changes the luxury landscape of fashion? Because there is the luxury of something that is very difficult to attain monetarily, and there's the luxury of things that are not necessarily just monetarily more difficult, but that they require different time to produce, that they require a special connection with something to produce. So there are different types of luxury in life. You know, I can call luxurious to be able to go every day to the beach. So luxury comes in different shapes and sizes and money points. How do you think that kind of fashion changes the way that we perceive luxury and what it is that we want to pay for as a luxury item?
yeah, I think people want something that fit them exactly, like for their measurements, without the pain of, you know, doing all the going somewhere and taking your measurements. Or like I offered like virtual fitting session with me, but using an app in between us, and it worked like perfectly. So why not to use this tool as like use technology in every aspect of your process? That's basically my that's what I aim to do. But I think that's something that's a big pain for customers in the luxury world that want to buy something expensive, but want it also to fit them, you know, to their measurements completely, I think.
And how do you see the connection with the artist that will produce something very unique, being that face of luxury? Because there are people that we look up to for many reasons, that they produce things that speak to us in different levels and that we want to aspire to. So how is that connection with the artist considered luxury in that sense?
Oh, that's a cool question. Yeah, I think, all right, let me just give some examples because that might help. I think from a luxury perspective, a lot of the designers in our network came from luxury fashion. So they came from Loewe. They've done like all of that, like, you know, they got fatigued by it, they got burnt out by it, they got no recognition from it. So they were like, okay, I'm going to create my own collections. And now the stuff that they're making is very custom. It's very like, it's luxury. It's luxury, I guess, whatever you want to call it as luxury. But in terms of like a higher tier price point, smaller units of numbers of like orders and items, and then like materials that are like sustainable. That's one way of looking at luxury. I think from like the way the artist connects with the fan, I mean, they connect directly just via like minting an NFT and then having access to a community. I mean, that in itself is like, I can like whitelist all those wallets and keep like feeding them content, right? I think the cool thing about like connected goods, and that's why it's really important in clothing and like physical goods in general, to have this like interoperability or connection between I am the like a token holder or I'm the NFT holder of this item. And so when I get the physical, like, so like Alpha House Sequoia, like when you drop your like first collection, like when I get it, I want to scan it and claim it that I'm the verified owner of this physical piece. And so I think that is that's a very like direct access to the brand. Like it feels like you're not really buying from a Shopify experience anymore. It feels like, yeah, sure, there's like tech layers between you and I to communicate, but actually that's a very straightforward interaction that you can then, as a brand, keep feeding and upselling, you know, new content, new like VIP membership stuff or whatever. So that's quite cool.
Yeah, I like the idea of, well, personally, and that's the thing, like we build things that we want to see in the world. So you build something that because you wanted to connect that creator with an audience. You build something because you want to make something special for everyone. And that is different. And we are building something that connects people in different ways. So you want to have a piece that you wear forever, that has provenance, that has the art of an artist that you admire, and that will give you a feeling. So, you know, you can have different types of technology, right? Because that's the thing, like the technology reshaping fashion. There is the NFTs that we can use. We have chips that we can use on clothes and give you provenance. We'll give you a playlist that will give you a mood. Because whenever you're getting ready to go out, you do put on, even you're doing housework, you got to put on a playlist because it changes our perception of time and it will completely change your chemicals and mood. So the idea of how you experience things and how do you interact with them would change your idea of luxury and what it is that you want to attain to.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And there is this kind of like wider narrative around, and this is something that we tend to write about quite a lot, which is like there is this era of like the creator renaissance coming, right? Like back in the day, like, you know, you would have back in the day, like I was there, but like, you know, like
in my day, talking about it, right?
Back in my day. So like this idea of like tailors or like the artist, like being the I'm gonna drop it. It's being the muse in a sense, or being the knowledgeable one was like, it was a very like high stature role in society, right? And it feels like we could potentially be moving towards that again, where we do really uphold these artists, right?
We used to admire people that created also fashion, also garments, also how you'd present yourself in places. And we still do, but to a much more precise number of people.
Sure.
So that used to be like my grandfather was a tailor. So he was that person to whoever would buy from him. So in that sense, a decentralized economy. So for those people, he was that person. Nowadays, we look up to a handful of people to be that, and we will buy copies, whatever it is that they produce. So on a way, we are bringing back that decentralized, local, approachable.
Yes.
You feel like you can slow fashion, something that you can connect to. How do you see that being scalable?
That's a good one. That's always a good one.
$1 million question.
That's the one we don't. How are we going to be unicorn?
Thank you, everyone. That's all the time we have.
Fashion is all about. It's like unlocking this challenge. I don't think I have the answer for it, but I think as more awareness will come, and like more people will say, wait, I wanna know what exactly I'm buying. I wanna buy more secondhand clothes. That's a good starting point to like more like slow fashion, and like saying that no, I don't wanna support you fast fashion companies anymore. So I think awareness is starting. It's only the beginning, because we have no choice anymore. I'm using only recyclable material in my work, so I know I am able to recycle my garments after, and I produce them from waste and la la la. So I think the people who is interested in the work is also interested of what is it made of, and so yeah, that's the starting point. We start to say, oh wait, it's not cool, and then we say, what else can we do? And I'm saying in my opinion, it's not enough to just change the thread or change the dye of the fabrics. We need to change the whole method from scratch, and rethink about the way we think about circular economy in clothing, and how we produce them, and how we approach, how do we get to see these garments in our world, and rethinking about the whole way. And I don't have the end, and when is it going to be commercially available? And like,
I don't know. I don't think I have, or like, I think there's methods around it. I actually think like, in theory, right? We'll have to see how it turns out in practice. But I think like it's not too far away. I'm quite optimistic about it. Only because like when I was doing this stuff, like when I initially came into it in 2011, it was a very different mindset. It was like there was this like genuine like. It was a very small community of people that wanted to change fashion. And then 10 years later, that pain point has actually grown. And a lot of those people are now, and regulation is now putting pressure on fashion, right? Like the EU is now passing like digital passports for consumer products, right? Like including fashion. So it is moving, and if anything, like generationally, it is changing in terms of like what we consume, whatever. And then there was this concept that we've talked about previously, which is like and this is not just us talking about it. There's reports on it. There's like methods of like looking at how this thing can be actually commercialized. Is that moving it away from like a centralized supply chain into much more of like supply webs. This is not crypto. This is Deloitte writing about it, right? This is like
but that's the important thing. That's how we actually change anything in the wider world. If we don't think about the crypto bubble and the Web3 bubble, because we are still a very small amount of people, so if you do want to change things, you have to look at how people do it in the world.
And that's already actually happening. So like I think it's really weird in crypto. I don't know why we just feel like a very like it's like siloed in a way, but like I think the good thing about working with physicals, right, or working in like trad industries or like real world cases is that you can then kind of bring that education into crypto. And I think like supply webs is not a thing that crypto has come up with. Decentralized supply perhaps, but it's basically the same thing. It's like saying, why are you going to go to Primark? I mean, I'm sorry, like recently Rita Ora did a very bad collection with Primark and everyone took the piss out of it on Instagram. So people are recognizing it, right? Like people don't want to buy £1 or €1 t-shirts anymore because they realize that's really fucking unethical.
Yeah,
right?
I think those things continue to exist because of the inequality we have in the world. So there are people that do not have the option of paying €20 for a child's clothes.
Totally.
So sadly, that's a different problem that we have to fix before we fix the whole conception of fashion, right? But people that do have the option and the idea of influencers buying load trucks of clothes for this 5 minutes or for these 2 events that they're going to, the perception that needs to change for people to appreciate clothing and novelty.
Yeah.
So what is novel? What is the novelty here? Is that you have new clothes, or is it that you have different experience with those garments that you have? So what is your attachment to the things that you consume?
Yeah.
Right? It's mindfulness consuming, I guess. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's basically most of the things that we pretty much touched on. Like, it's like behaviorally, people are consuming or looking at things slightly differently. I don't know. I think like it's going to be a matter of time to see how it really all unfolds. But I think it's all of those things that you mentioned, right? I think it's like there's a lot of partners or a lot of players and suppliers and builders across this value chain that are doing very cool experimental things. And it's about just seeing like how that keeps sustaining and moving forward. And if anything, you got to give ourselves credit in crypto. Like we're very experimental. We get very scrappy. We get on with it. We do stuff. We just need to kind of like tell the trad world, hey, we're here, let's do something with this. And I genuinely don't think that's too far away. I think like Mischief, for example, Mischief is not in crypto, right? Mischief could easily be in crypto. Like the recent drop that they did was a decentralized bag. And it was like, fashion is actually predominantly very composable because it's blanks, it's print, it's this and this and that. It's very modular. So if you then have like the modularity of every single piece being created by different creators or designers, that's a real amazing value add for a consumer to be like, look at this thing that I'm wearing. Can you believe that it's been made in Portugal? It's been made in these, like, it's pretty fascinating, the level of composability that it brings. And it just kind of completely changes the narrative of like how brands can actually produce fascinating garments that they probably haven't potentially managed to do before.
And as closing arguments here, so what is is there something technological that you still don't have access to that would change and like logarithmically, exponentially, the way that you'd produce something?
I have the access. No, I'm kidding. Technology has a lot to accelerate in order for it to take just a few minutes to print a jacket and not just a few hours. So until then, and it will be less. It will be more rare. But what I want to talk about is the opportunities that we can get with Web3 and like digital fashion. And you both mentioned that you can have something very special. But what if this special thing will change based on seasons over time? So you buy a Prada dress and then it's turning to be like a long sleeves shirt because winter is coming, and like your NFT is constantly changing, and you can ask if you want to be for it to be produced. And this can happen like thanks to like, I don't know, like smart contracts or like all these technological tools that we can have if we will go more deeper into like, you know, this world of Web3 and what it can offer. I think it's just like we just touched the yeah, exactly, just a tiny part of the surface of what is going to happen with our kids, how they will consume fashion. How is it going to be related to Web3? I don't know how they're going to call it when they will be older. But yeah, but I think be part of all these experiments, like Nouns, for example, that really showing a way of how you start a brand from scratch and spread it and turn it into be a Disney, and how can you be like a new fashion designer that use technological tools and and be unique and bring awareness to different topics and sell less but sell more. You know what I mean? Like sell more with the experience and what you gain, but by being part of it. And I think the way it will be in the future, I think it's going to be more like an experience for, like, if you go to a store, it's not just to go and buy a dress for like €5. It's going to be an experience. And like you will, I don't know, like it's going to be like a museum. Stores will be more like an experience for people because they will be not interested in the actual things, but the feelings that they get buying these things, so I think that's the shift in mind that we will start to see, hopefully.
Maz, and what it is that you're missing to do your dream job? Like, what is your pain point that you still would like to see?
My pain point? I've got lots of pain points. What is the pain point that I'm trying to like get rid of?
No, I mean, like, what would be is there a technology that you think is not there yet that you think would change the way that you see fashion evolving?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot actually.
People out to open their wallet, have to get
there is that, the onboarding. Yeah, I mean, like we can do that, I guess, now, right? I mean, like, because we're pretty crypto native, but like there's like abstraction stuff going on, and so like that's for like consumers to come and like buy and sign in with email. I think from an info side, actually, to be fair to Web3, like payments is getting better, like signing in is getting better, all this kind of stuff. I think one thing that does keep me up at night, I'll be honest, is that what if it's like still early, right? What if it's like really overwhelming? Because there's a lot going on, and like this would be pretty overwhelming for like any trad brand to like enter into. There is like breadcrumbing of the fact that bigger luxury brands are concerned about what to do because they're like hiring Web3 heads in their department. So obviously something's inevitable, right?
It is inevitable.
Yeah.
The technology is not going anywhere. It's not like suddenly we're going to stop using smart contracts. So the technology is not going anywhere. It's just how they are adapting and how we are implementing things from scratch.
I think so, exactly. And like, which one is really the one that will like, because I think a lot of people say to us, like, look, we can see your vision. This makes total sense. But how do you go from this to that, right? Like, exactly, like you're streamlining, you're scaling. Like, how does it go from that initial step to like the actual evolution of like brands, fashion, whatever, with this like digi-physical component? Like, who is the winner here? Like, who's going to make the change and adopt everyone else into this mechanism? And like, really, it's probably going to be like what everyone says, like build something that is not crypto related or like it's not crypto obvious. So it's abstracted in a way so that it's like a very easy UI UX. You don't even realize you're interacting with a blockchain, right? And that's usually how, I guess, software wins. So
well, people started adopting smartphones and apps because it was inevitable in our lives, and you didn't have to code.
Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of it. You have to be able to interact with these pieces without being too technical. And as soon as you remove that fear component, because we are afraid of the things we don't know, and it's easier to say you don't like than it is to say you don't understand.
Absolutely.
So as soon as we take those barriers away, I think we all see that the future of fashion is going to happen quite fast.
Yeah, and also like crypto doesn't like do much help for itself, right? Like there's a lot of like degen activity that like the normal person would be like, this is a scam. Fair enough, right? You got to be honest. That's fucking fair enough. And like, right. And so like, I think that sentiment in itself, like, freaks people out. Like a lot of people like, as someone who is putting in their credit card details on a website needs to be absolutely sure that they can trust that website that would take their payment. So if they already have that resistance towards a payment, trust towards putting their money into something, they're not going to use it, right? So yeah.
Well, we're going to wrap. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you, too, for the conversation, which I know you're very surprised by the questions because I didn't chat them before. Thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all back in the fashion stage. Thank you.